Today we're talking about getting team members the information they need. Today's all about like informing, communicating, just making sure the necessary information is communicated to your team in a timely manner so that they'll be successful in both in their pipeline as well as just their roles overall. So that of course involves them, you training them generally on your workflow, but also making sure that they're aware of the items that we'll go over today, okay? So we're going to be covering a lot of features today, so I'm not going to go in depth into any single one of them. If you've got questions about them, obviously feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to educate you on those. Pretty much everything I'll cover will have some help documentation on our Learning Center that you can go to refer to, or possibly even a whole Pipeline Pro webinar. But again, so I'm just going to kind of superficially cover each of the subjects, but just letting you know that they exist in case you want to explore further, and also let you know how they help with this whole effort of making sure your team has the information that they need. All right. Second little caveat before I dive in is you'll hear me talking a lot, or at least some, about reducing clutter. Part of making sure that team members have the information they need is not just getting them the information that they do need, but suppressing the information that they don't need so that it's not in the way, cluttering their experience, making them have to attend to more than what they actually need to work on. So reducing clutter is huge, as you probably know, to us, because we like to keep things simple, because in the end, it makes everyone work more effectively when they're seeing only what they need to see. So simplification is the name of the game, and some of the things that we'll talk about today help toward that goal. Alrighty? Okay, so that said, let's go ahead and dive in. All right. So we're going to start, of course, with the mother of all communication and information tools, and that is the checklists, right? We encourage you to fully maximize the checklist. If you are not using them, you absolutely should be. They're designed inherently to communicate, right? They support having due dates associated with them. You can set visibility, like I said, to help reduce clutter, right? So set tasks to only be visible to certain roles of people, maybe to listing agents or selling agents or both, or only to admins, so that maybe the agents aren't seeing it when they don't need to. It's only assigned to admins, etc. So setting that visibility, setting those due dates, preferably at the template level. Based on those elements, you get automatic reminder messages that go out based on those. So they're super powerful, but also really flexible, because you're creating the content. You're deciding what tasks need to be done, when they need to be due, etc. Completely flexible based on the text that you put into there. But then again, based on how they're designed, they automatically create workflows and set due dates and remind people, etc. So definitely encourage you to use those. And also don't feel limited by them. Like I said, they're super flexible, so you can plug in their information to use them however you need to. We've experienced people using them really creatively. We'll get some people who, some examples could be that we get people who have reminders for sale anniversaries, right? So they'll put a reminder to contact the seller once they've been in their home for a year, or they'll use it for employee start date anniversaries. Hollis was telling me an example actually of how a particular office actually used a checklist that guides the agents through what to do in pipeline when they have a transaction. So super creative. So again, don't feel limited. It's based on whatever you need to have done on a transaction, or in that case that I mentioned there for HR purposes, whatever you need to get done, because again, they're just text that you can use to drive whatever you want to actually get done. Alrighty. Another example I've got listed here actually is reminding agents to renew their licenses, right? Another great use of that. Okay. So like I mentioned, you can set visibility on tasks so that only the appropriate people are seeing them. You can also use @mention, right? I've got a transaction over here where a role and a person, right? You can @mention an entire role like office staff, or @mention a specific person like Fleming. so that for that role or people, when they're looking at the task on the transaction or on the tasks page, right, it'll be highlighted green for them. So at mentioning will highlight a task for a person, so that it, and highlighting it can be whatever, have whatever need you associate with it, whatever you train them to do. You can train them that when it's highlighted for you, obviously that's one that's assigned to you, or when it's highlighted for you, I want to flag it for whatever reason, right? So at mentioning highlights a task to flag it for the appropriate people when needed. So have one clean way of communicating. The third place that it's highlighted, by the way, is whenever the reminder message goes out, those tasks will be highlighted in that reminder message as well. Okay. So tasks are obviously huge. Definitely encourage you to utilize those to help communicate and keep your team informed. Next, we touched on this briefly when we went to the tasks page, but the tasks page is huge because it stores all of the tasks that I have visibility to on one page across all transactions. This is a central area where I can come to see what needs to get done, right? I don't need to go to each transaction to see that. I can see it right from this nice list. All right, so huge help here. And that's for me as an agent, right? I can see all of my tasks across all transactions. As an admin, I can see all tasks across all transactions for all agents, right? So that way nothing falls between the cracks because I'm looking at everything that needs to get done. Okay, so this is a huge organization tool that can be utilized. So encourage you to encourage your team to be able to use this. They'll still get the reminders, of course, when things come due, but if they want a central place to come see it all, this is it. All right. Next, let me hop back to a transaction. Obviously can't talk about keeping teams informed or communicated to without talking about sending messages, right? The message feature is quite robust because you can do lots of things, but it's simple as well. Honestly, it's as easy as sending a quick email as long as you've got the email address, and then send your message, and lots of tools to help support that happening in just a couple of clicks. Some of those are dragging and dropping, right? If I need to mail something, let's say I've got a contact here, and I want to mail something to that person, I just drag their email address, right? So no typing there. If I want to share that person's contact information, I just drag it to the message area. It'll nicely format that for me. Okay, lots of other features that help make this super simple dragging and dropping of not just the people, but of individual tasks if I wanted to share those, right? Including any due date rules or actual dates associated with those, right? Likewise, if I've got a comment on a doc, I can drag that. It'll include the name of the doc. It'll even format it nicely. If I preview this message, you see how it formats it nicely so it's easily readable. So I can see the comment that was associated with that doc, right? So very drag and drop friendly, so you're really minimizing your typing there, right? And if you really want to minimize your typing, use the message templates. If you use your message templates, let's say just throw in a message templates combined with some message tags, right, to automatically insert information from the transaction, just totally hands-free. You're creating a message, a very custom message in just a couple clicks, right? Likewise, hands-free or type-free audio message. You want it, let me go ahead and switch. Let's say you want to just record a quick message to either add to the transaction or send to someone. Click audio message, speak your message, and then done, right? So super, super helpful. Okay. Another way of communicating with your team, making sure they stay informed, is making sure that under admin settings, open this in a separate tab, you've got turned on to send your agents expiring and closing transaction reminders. Okay, that will automatically let them know when a transaction is about to expire or close. Super helpful. Alrighty. Another way of making sure that teams stay informed I mentioned earlier when you can drag and drop a comment onto a message. Switch that back to regular message. Just adding comments in themselves, right? So when you add a comment on a doc by clicking there and then type your comment, right? That comment gets automatically sent to the agent on the transaction. Alrighty. So no extra message needed. Also, one area that we find that agents don't necessarily know about is that under their personal profile, I click here under my name and then do personal profile. I'm going to open that in a separate tab. Agents have the ability to run their commissions report right here. Okay. So directly, they don't need to check in with an admin to get that. They can run their own commissions report to see what their commissions look like for whatever period they specify, current fiscal year, last fiscal year, etc. And then the last piece I wanted to show that admins can help deliver information to team members, particularly agents, is to do the individual transaction download. So when you're on a transaction and you do download transaction, it'll allow you to download fully that entire transaction so that you can hand it off to whoever you need to, an agent or whoever is requesting it. We do encourage you to make sure that you review that information on the CD before you hand it over, because that is a full download, right? It is not limited. It doesn't limit visibility like it does to the docs when you're on a transaction. So you need to make sure the docs that whenever you're handing it over, that it only includes information that that person should have visibility to, right? Remove any information that they should not have visibility to. Alrighty. A few little side notes about that can help your team members learn that aren't necessarily communication from you. And that one is columns, right? Showing and hiding columns. So when I'm on a transaction page, or unassigned or unreviewed, I've got the ability to show or hide certain columns. And this goes to that whole notion of reducing clutter, right? If I really don't need to see location or complete, this probably isn't as long of a list as the other pages here. Let's go to unassigned. Right, I don't need to see added by or added on. That way I'm only looking at the information I need to see, reducing that clutter, right? So one beneficial thing there. Also, we are very hover intense. So if you hover over information, you will learn a lot. Let me go back to a transaction here, right? I can get information about a particular doc. I can learn what a particular button does, what visibility means, right? Pretty much anything you hover over in Pipeline will educate you about what that thing does. And as well as like when you're in a message, you've got some hover tips there as well as links, right? It'll give you even more formatting tips if you click there, even more message tag tips there, etc. Right? So very hover intensive, and of course, always encourage them to get help if they've got any further questions, because they can type, let's say, right, mail drop or whatever, and get articles related to that particular topic, and then message us if the topic that they choose doesn't have the answer that they need, right? But getting to that help site is really easy that way. And our help site has a ton of information pretty much on any topic, and since it's searchable, you can find whatever you need to, whatever you've got a question about super quickly. And of course, you can always contact us. Okay. Other thing I wanted to encourage you just from a training standpoint that's related to communication is always encourage / require / train your team to hit reply all on messages, so that when a message is coming from the system and they hit reply all to it, if they're a team member of yours, another Pipeline user, that message will come back to the system, okay? And then you've got that complete thread. And that reply all is required currently because we can't control what a person wants to do with a message that they receive, right? If they don't want it to go back to the system or they don't want to reply all, that's certainly their prerogative. So we can't control that. So training people to hit reply all is necessary currently. Alrighty. And for externally, when you send a message from the system to external users, they do not have authorization to send something back into your pipeline account. They can reply all and it'll come to you, and you can authorize it coming back to the system by forwarding it there, but having any external party having the ability to send something to your pipeline system is not desirable currently. So, alrighty. And then last thing I wanted to mention is, actually last two things, excuse me. Last three things. Our agent checked tasks, right? When I'm an agent, head back to Kendall Lane here. When I'm an agent and I have completed a task that needs to be done and I check it off, I'm going to get this little yellow check, which is not a full check that an admin gives, which looks like that. It's this yellow check, but that's a communication tool for me to indicate to me, the agent, that I've completed something, right? So I can sort of not have to attend to it later because I know I've done it until the agent, excuse me, until the admin actually fully checks it off, right? So super helpful for me so that I don't have to keep reading, oh, did I do this one? Did I do that one? Did I do that one? I've got a visual cue there that lets me know that, right? And again, reduces clutter for me because I don't have to attend to it as much. And also when I'm looking at my tasks page, just that one over, open over here, those agent checked tasks will not show up for me anymore. Again, less information that I need to tend to. If I'm an agent, those won't show up, okay? Also, when I'm on a transaction, head back over, Kendall Lane. When I'm on a transaction, I can help reduce clutter for myself by collapsing certain sections that I'm not using. Let's say I'm already done, or I'm almost done with this checklist. There's a couple of items, but they're not related to me. I can go ahead and collapse that so it's out of the way, right? Or I really don't need to see the contacts unless I'm using them. I can collapse that so that they're out of the way. Alrighty. And then very last thing, I promise this time, is for admins to be notified when agents add docs to transactions. If you don't already have it on, just to let you know that under your personal profile, you've got the ability to be notified, receive notification when agent adds doc to a transaction. That way, whenever a doc is added, you'll get an email message that lets you know that. Some admins really like that. Some that would be too overwhelming for them, so they turn it off, but just to let you know that you've got that option. Alrighty. Cool, cool. Okay, this time that was the last one. So I've exhausted my outline of things I want to tell you here. So that's it for today as far as ways to keep your team informed.